Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Zaslansky, the founder of the Book Fairies, and we are so excited to be day 3 into our readathon event. We are also really excited to have with us today author Judy Blundell, who is also known as Jude Watson. She's the author of books set in the Star Wars universe. Judy is a New York Times bestselling author of more than 100 books for children. She received a National Book Award for Young People's Literature in 2008 for her novel, What I Saw and How I Lied, which is set in postwar Florida. She was born in Brooklyn and has lived in 5 states, several of them more than once. She lives on the North Shore of Long Island with her husband and daughter, and we are lucky enough today that Judy is going to be giving away a signed copy of her book, Sting. We will be randomly selecting a winner and announcing it tomorrow. You just have to go on this feed and select like, click on like on the video, and welcome Judy. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. I'm really thrilled to be here. Like most people, I've been inside my house for a very long time. So hello, everybody who showed up digitally. Probably if there are, I hope, lots of kids out there who are watching this who have been maybe learning remotely. And so I'm really grateful to you for showing up. And here's the good news. I will not assign homework. So here's how it's going to go. I'm coming to you from my office, which is kind of messy. You can see behind me, that's what I call my inspiration wall. I'm in the middle of a book right now, so it has pictures and quotes and little post-its with story ideas on it. So just kind of screen that out, and I will try to screen it out too, and just talk about a book I wrote a couple of years ago. I'm going to read a little bit from this book called Sting. That's the book that is in the giveaway. And Sting is a sequel to the book Loot. And the books are about 4 kids who are jewel thieves, believe it or not. I got the idea from it because I was trying to think of an idea of having a kid do kind of extraordinary things, like have a job that's like an adult and operate in an adult world, but be a kid and have the smarts of a kid and the perspective of a kid and enter a kind of fantastic world. And all of a sudden I thought, well, what would it be like if you grew up and your father was the most famous jewel thief in the world, notorious, like wanted in 14 countries? What would that be like? And that sort of started the idea. Once you come up with that little idea first, that becomes your kind of your starting point. And then you start asking yourself, well, what if that happened? What would his life be like? What would his childhood be like? You know, he probably would be bouncing around all over the world. He probably wouldn't go to a regular school for very long. And so once that started, I just took off and had a lot of fun writing about cons and heists, all done by kids, because kids are can be invisible in certain situations. And if they're really bright and smart, they can really kind of outdo adults on lots of things. I'm sure you agree with that. So my main character's name, I'm just going to set up the scene that I'm going to read. And then after I read, I'm just going to read from the beginning. If there are any questions, just fire away and I will get them and answer them. And just ask me anything about being a writer or how I do my research or anything you want. Okay, so main character's name is March. His father has died in the roof, sadly. And after he fell off the roof and March realized he was very much alone, he found out that he had a twin sister and they were separated when they were 2 years old. His sister's name is Jules, and she is very adept on something. I have to set this up for you, something called aerial silks, which is kind of, if you don't know what that is, it's not like a trapeze. It's a long pieces of fabric that you twist around and you could really fly through the air and hang upside down and do all sorts of tricks. And it comes in very handy if you become a jewel thief. So in the beginning of Sting, March and his sister Jules are doing a favor for somebody. They retired from jewel thievery at the end of Loot, but someone has asked them to do a favor, and that's to steal a bunch of very valuable diamonds from a very rich man in Paris. So, chapter 1, back again and upside down. Paris, France. March McQuinn didn't think he'd ever be in this position again. Upside down and dangling 20 feet over a stone floor at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was awesome. If only he didn't have an incredible urge to sneeze. March closed his eyes, pressed his lips together, and swallowed, his usual remedy against avoiding an explosive spew of noise, spit, and snot. Dust filled his nose, the kind of ancient grime that tends to layer on the gutters and skylights of Parisian rooftops. Instead of a sneeze, what emerged sounded like an elephant strangling on a trumpet. Okay, here's a little audio aid, a sound effect. His twin sister Jules glanced at him, her wide eyes telegraphing a clear message. Shut up. Their Mark, Yves Beaumaris, was snoozing away down the hall. Their source had promised that he took a sleeping pill every night, but March's father, the world famous and unfortunately deceased cat burglar Alfie McQuinn, had always said, never trust a source 100%, or even 90. Okay, 75% tops. There was no question they were rusty. They hadn't pulled a job in over a year, but this job was supposed to be super easy. Jules swung by her knees, taking photos of the security panel. The house was built in the 17th century, but Beaumaris liked contemporary design. He'd gutted the old woodwork and exposed all the piping and ducts. March thought it was hideous, but it gave his twin plenty of options to display her abilities on her aerial silks, flexible fabric upon which she could twirl, fly, and suspend herself by her ankles in midair. March might look like a trussed-up turkey on the silks, but Jules looked like an acrobatic angel. Jules dropped down and keyed in some numbers. She was disabling the thing upside down. It's not like he'd tell her or anything, but his twin was amazing. March saw the light flash green. They were good to go. Jules did a double somersault on her way down to the floor. Show off. March used the silks to propel him into an awkward half somersault and landed on one foot before crashing to his knees. Jules rolled her eyes. But this was the charged moment he loved. The first release of pressure, when you were in with the security system disabled and all that was ahead was grabbing the loot and making the getaway. He missed this. The housekeeper away, the Mark in a deep sleep, a briefcase full of loose diamonds. You see me, Pop? That was one perfect entry. If ever there was a sure thing, March often talked to Alfie in his head. The trouble was, his Pop talked back. Haven't I taught you anything? Never trust a sure thing. Jules nudged him. Wake up, dream boy. Let's go steal some diamonds. She pointed to a long desk against one wall. The briefcase was right where it was supposed to be. It took March only 30 seconds to pick the lock. All it took was a slender shim and the right touch. He opened the case, Jules at his shoulder. The briefcase was lined with velvet pouches. He picked up one and shook a stone into his palm. It felt so cold. It wasn't a diamond. It was a large sapphire, royal blue, with a star in its center. It mesmerized him for a moment, pulling him into a whirling cosmos of deep blue starlight. Yet at the same time, he felt as though a sudden rush of eternity blew through him, an empty black void that moved like an oily, cold river. Sudden panic rippled through him, and he felt his throat close. He had to fight the desire to toss the jewel back into the pouch. Then he heard a noise from the bedroom. Someone was heading for them down the hall. March shoved the stone in his pocket while Jules snapped the briefcase closed. He almost moaned as the pouches full of diamonds disappeared. They slid behind the couch as they heard a tapping noise. March grinned. He knew what this was. Paws on a stone floor. They knew everything about their mark, including how much Monsieur Yves Beaumaris doted on his small, ugly dog. The brown dog trotted towards them, ears twitching, stumpy tail wagging. She was small enough to fit in a purse, but squat and pudgy. March reached into one pocket for the dog treat. He almost passed out from the dog breath that emanated from the panting animal. He held out the treat, and the dog sniffed it before gobbling it down. Good girl, La Mochelle, March murmured. Not much of a watchdog, are you? Shh, Jules warned. Something's wrong. I know. This dog really stinks. Not the dog. There's a noise on the roof. Wind. There wasn't any wind tonight, Jules said. From the window, a beam of light moved over the room. March hit the floor at the same time as Jules. They squirmed away from the light and crawled fast down the hall. La Rochelle thought it was a game and nipped at March's heels. She gave a playful growl. A faint, high noise could be heard. March knew that noise. Someone was slicing through the grillwork over the window. Someone else was breaking into the apartment. March's heart leaped and twisted like a fish on a line. He shot a panicked look at Jules. She pointed toward the bedroom. They crawled through the doorway, their knees whispering against the hard floor, the dog waddling after them. The man in the bed sighed and flopped over. He was dressed in silk pajamas and wore a sleep mask. March and Jules rolled under the bed. Beaumaris smacked his lips. My cabbage, he murmured in his sleep. A hand flopped down by the floor. La Rochelle, Beaumaris murmured. Mon petit chien, my little dog, where are you? He was starting to wake up. There was only one thing to do. March slithered closer. It was either this or prison. He leaned over and licked the man's hand. Jules clutched her throat, pretending to gag. Beaumaris let out a sigh. Ah, mon angel. Then he flipped over and began to snore. Now, March could hear the sounds of stealth, the smallest of sounds, footsteps padding across the floor, and then the unmistakable snap of a briefcase lock. Someone was stealing their diamonds. But at least they were safe for now. Just then, an alarm went off. The dog howled. Beaumaris sat up. He fumbled for a light, but bumped his head on the headboard and swore. No time to think, no time to plan. March and Jules scrambled out from under the bed and ran. Whoever had been in the house was gone. The briefcase open and empty, the window still open. Light snapped on in the kitchen. Monsieur Beaumaris! The voice was high and panicked. Rapid French followed, too fast for March to translate. It was the housekeeper, the one who was supposed to be on holiday. Police! That he understood. Jules was already moving, running, and slipping her silks out from her waist pack at the same time. Before March could take another breath, she'd swung the silk over the duct overhead. Move, she hissed. March scrambled up the silk. His blood thundered in his ears. He may have missed the excitement of the life of a thief, but he didn't miss this panic. As soon as he climbed on top of the duct, Jules climbed up, faster and more agile than he. She rolled up the silk and then tightrope walked along the ductwork as he crawled behind her. Jules reached the open window and stuck one foot out. The stout housekeeper galloped into the space below, brandishing a copper tray. She let it fly, and it spun in an aggressive, perfect arc straight toward him. He could only stare with horrified certainty that it was about to take his head off. From her perch outside, Jules grabbed his collar and yanked him out the window. The clang of the copper was louder than the alarm. It fell to the stone floor in a bashing, clanging, rolling, crashing smash. But now they could hear the wee-oh, wee-oh of police sirens drawing near. They were 50 feet above the pavement with no way down. So much for a clean getaway, Jules said. Well, I think I'll stop there. That's Sting. So, anybody have any questions to ask? Okay, I have to lean forward and look because this is the tiniest box. How did you? Okay, how did you decide to write Star Wars, and were you a huge Star Wars fan? Who was your favorite Star Wars character to write about? I was approached by Scholastic Books to write Star Wars, so I didn't really think of it myself. Somebody gave me a call. They were in partnership with Lucas Books, which is an offshoot of Lucasfilm. And I was a fan. My husband was a bigger fan, and he and I rented all the movies, and I got back up to speed, and it was really, really fun. And I think I have a couple of favorite characters, some of whom I made up. I really liked writing Qui-Gon, and I really liked writing Obi-Wan as a boy. If anybody doesn't know what these Star Wars books were, they were Star Wars characters that you know as grown-ups in the movies that I wrote about their training in the temple. So Obi-Wan, Anakin, and going through Jedi training. So those were kind of my two favorite characters to write about, I think. Have you been able to meet George Lucas or any of the Star Wars stars? Do you have any stories you can share? I never met George Lucas. I never went to the ranch, and I have not met any of the actors. Probably because I didn't go to Comic-Con. I just never did, and that's kind of a regret. I was invited a couple of times, and I just never went. I think what was really great about Star Wars was entering a world that was really fully realized by George Lucas, in terms of the movies. And they have something called the Expanded Universe, which they have a Star Wars Bible, which you get as a writer. And so you get to look through that and see what they've made up as far as ships and weapons and planets. And then you just get to pick and choose like what you would like to choose. And also make up what they were so great about. You could make up whatever you wanted. And the first time, the first book was the first movie, the one with Princess Amidala in it and Qui-Gon Jinn. And so the movie hadn't come out yet. So I got to read the script before the movie came out. And that was really pretty cool. And the script was coded so that if you disobeyed orders, because I had to sign something to say I wouldn't give it away or show it to anybody, I could only read it myself. So it was coded in case I photocopied it and tried to sell it or something, they'd know it was me. I thought that was pretty cool. I felt very, insidery. Did having a daughter change the way you wrote books, or did it help give you more ideas to add to your books? I don't think it changed the way I wrote books, except that I learned how to write not in this. Things be completely quiet. I used to write wherever and however I could when she was young. She's older now. She's 19. When she was a kid, I used to write in basketball practice, or, while the other moms would be going to get a coffee, I'd be on the bleachers writing. I think having a kid did help me understand and how kids think in terms of now, because when I grew up, I did not grow up in a digital universe. So it was helpful to have someone grow up with computers and iPhones and all that sort of stuff. And so that was definitely helpful. And you do tend to, as a parent, you do tend to like zoom back into your own childhood once you have a kid and kind of remember what it's like. Okay. Will there be another book in the Lewd and Sting series? I don't think so. That is probably up to Scholastic. I have been writing adult books for the past couple of years, and I have an idea for one more, and then I'll probably might go back to writing for kids again because I kind of miss it, but I'm really not sure. I'm just in a place where I'm just doing one book at a time right now. Aileen asks, curious, why do so many stories for youth seem to have a parent dying? That's true. Do you prefer writing a standalone book or writing series, and why? Okay, that's two questions. I think so many books for kids, it's such a tradition in children's literature to have kids be orphans or have a parent who died. So I think we're following in that tradition. But also I think something that gives a child two things. One is more autonomy. Sometimes, when they lose a parent or they lose both parents, as my character March does in Lute and Sting, he doesn't have any parents. He has to find his own family, which he does, and gathers that around him. It makes for a very emotional story, a very kind of visceral story. I think I really like writing series. I've done a lot of it. There's a series called The 39 Clues that was very popular when my daughter was younger, that I really had a ball writing that because I shared it with other writers. Each one of us wrote a different book, and that was great fun. And you really get to, it's like writing a series for TV in the sense that you really get to explore character in a way that you don't with one book. The advantages of writing a standalone book is when you write the end, it's the end, and you're able to leave your characters in a place that makes you feel good and makes the reader feel good. So I like that too. We know you spent most of your writing, okay, that just jumped, sorry, focusing on children's books. How was it to write the adult book, The High Season? That was great fun. There's a point of view of a teenager in The High Season, and strangely enough, I did not start with that point of view, but I started with the idea of a family who lives in a resort town. In this case, it's the North Fork of Long Island out in Orient. And because they can't, in order to make money, they can't really afford the house really full time. So in order to contribute to the family income, they rent it out during the summer. And that was the beginning of the idea. And I always knew there'd be a teenage girl in it. So I did enjoy being able to write from the parents' perspective. That was really interesting for me. It was a little, it's a little different than writing a kid's book, because even in YA, you might have a strong parental figure in it, but you usually don't write from their point of view. We love the 39 Clues. Yay! Thank you. Did you get a chance to collaborate with the other authors when you wrote your books? Did any of them give you ideas or good advice writing for the 39 Clues? I'm trying to think of how to answer that, because one of the things I did for the 39 Clues was write the story arc for several of the series within the series. So I broke down each book and kind of came up with a bare bones plot that each author would then follow. However, having said that, each author was given tremendous latitude to do what they wanted. And I was working with masters of the genre like Gordon Corman and Peter Larangis and Linda Sue Park. And, I'm not going to tell Gordon Corman how to write a thriller. He knows what he's doing. So he just knew that he had to hit certain signposts down the road. So we all in that series. And then we would come together when we did events or school visits, and just have just a blast, just have the best time. I worked with the best people and the best editors on that series, and it was a joy from start to finish, and I really miss it. We really had a ball coming up with those plots. They got crazier and crazier. Okay, we know you spent, oh, I already read that one. We love the 39 Clues series. Okay, there it is. What's the best book you read during quarantine? I've read a lot during quarantine, but mostly adult books. Let me think. I started to read The Odyssey. I still haven't finished it, like the original Greek book, and it's such a great adventure because I read Madeline Miller's book Circe, which is based on a Greek myth. So I kind of got into mythology a little bit during the lockdown. So that was really fun. Do you start out writing a standalone book, or do you know it will be a series? I always know it'll be a series before I go. Sometimes you don't know how long the series will be, but like with the 39 Clues, they had no idea it was going to be the tremendous hit that it was. And so we knew it was going to be, I think, oh God, I forget how many books, 7 to 10 in the first series. So, but it just kept going on because kids really loved it so much. With Loot and Sting, I originally thought I could definitely do a trilogy for these books, but I don't know, it just worked out to be 2. I felt like I left the kids in a really good place at the end of Sting. I kind of wanted them to retire and, enjoy life. Okay. When did you create Star Wars kid version? That was quite a while ago. That was like 20 years ago in the late 90s. So, and I wrote them for maybe, I stuck with them for a long time. I wrote a few of them because I had so much fun with them. And more movies kept getting made. And I also developed my own kind of storyline with a Jedi I made up called Ferris Olin, who was continued with other writers after I stopped writing them. So it was a period of probably maybe from start to finish, maybe 10 years where I worked on Star Wars books. Okay. Do you have a favorite book that you have read or written? I always really like the book that I've just written. That's always my favorite. But for kids books, so the last kids book I wrote was Sting, and I was really, really fond of the characters in those 2 books, Loot and Sting. They were kids who were kind of left behind by the adults in their lives, and they had to struggle a lot to make bonds with each other because nobody trusted anybody. And so writing the heists were just pure fun, and the cons, that was fun to write. But for me, the most touching thing is the emotional arc of the characters and how they learn to live in a world that maybe hasn't been very kind to them. And I think that's what's so great about books is a safe space for readers to feel scared and feel angry and all those kind of emotions. To work it out in a book is like just great and fun to do and helpful for all of us, because we all feel that way. We're all afraid to talk about it, but we love to read about it.
So I'm going to step in here again. Judy, you are amazing. We hope that you continue to keep writing during this quarantine time, so we have a lot more to look forward to. I'm sure you have ideas that are just peppering through your head, so we really appreciate it. And thanks to all of our Facebook viewers who are watching. Make sure that you hit the like button on the video because Judy is donating one of her autographed copy books of Sting. We're super excited about that. And everyone, please be sure to tune in tomorrow, same time, same place, 3 p.m. We have Annie Barrows, who is the author of the Bean series.
I love her.
And I think Judy will be tuning in to watch as well. So thank you, everybody. Let's keep doing the
Thank you.
readathon. Thank you so much, Judy. And
Thank you, everybody.
yep. And our whole goal here with the readathon is just to make sure that we give kids access to books, particularly during this COVID time when they are lacking. So everybody keep participating, and we will see you soon. Thanks again, Judy.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Take care.